They tell you a man's home is his castle, a fortress, a place where the world can't get to your kid. What they never say out loud is what happens when you pack up your whole heart and send it outside those walls with a lunchbox and a kiss, into a building with pastel posters and a mission statement on the wall that says, safe and caring, where the doors lock from the inside and the serpents wear staff badges. You know what I mean? Let me back up a sec. My daughter, let's call her Lena, has eyes like midnight sprinkled with porch light fireflies. She laughs like wind chimes. And when my wife braids her hair, those coils stack like a crown that refuses to bow to gravity or small minds. And every morning we had our rhythm toast and coffee and a half-asleep kid sliding into my lap while I skim headlines. I'd pack her lunch, not just a sandwich, but corners, cut into stars, a napkin note that says, "You are my sunshine." And on Fridays, and only Fridays, the juice box, sunburst mango. A quest item from a market across town with fruit. I can't pronounce the golden ticket after a week of phonics and playground politics. A promise from me that in the middle of that big building there'd be something sweet that's hers. At Cedar Hill Elementary Room 12 belonged to a woman I'll call Mrs. Caro. Tall, ironed, flat. A smile like a paper cut, she said. My kid's name, the way some folks say mosquito, dragged out like it offended her mouth. Other kids were assertive. Lena was defiant. Ashley. What a leader, Lena, that tone. Little things, micro quakes under your feet. You try to tell yourself you're overreacting because living mad 24/7 will set your chest on fire, so you take notes, you watch, you wait. The month before everything cracked, the class did a heritage project. Kids brought pasta recipes and wooden shoes, and Lena told the story of her great-grandmother who learned to read by candlelight and taught half a county how to vote. We were proud, and in red ink, the teacher wrote, "A bit somber for second grade. Let's strive for more uplifting. Like survival isn't uplifting. Like truth is a downer. The room can't bear." And that's when I knew she didn't see my kid. She saw a caricature she could manage. The day it happened was the kind of fall Friday that makes you breathe deeper. Sky loud, blue leaves bragging in red and orange. Lena wore her favorite pink shirt and waved at me from the bus like she could power the streetlights with her grin, and in that backpack tucked into her lunchbox, like a secret was sunburst mango, a trophy, a promise. And at 12:31, my phone rang the school line. "And if you're a parent, you know the way your stomach falls through the floor," a voice said. "Mr. Reed, you need to come now, the police are here." And the room went silent, except for that word police. And I was already out the door, keys in hand, headlights and red lights, and my heart doing 50 in a school zone. 2 cruisers were parked at the entrance, lights flashing without sirens, like the universe was whispering a threat. I ran, lungs burning, stepped into a lobby that felt like a stage mid-play. Teachers huddled by the office, a janitor frozen with a mop, and down the hall a voice was breaking glass with every syllable. The teacher. "Mrs. Caro, assault and theft. She needs to be arrested." And I thought, arrested who? And the principal? Mr. Benton, a steady guy, put a hand on my arm and said, "She's safe physically. She's with the counselor. Please let me explain." And in his office he looked 20 years older. I saw everything he said. Your daughter did nothing wrong. Relief hit me so hard I almost sat on the floor. Then confusion stood me back up. He told me it was lunch. He was doing his walkthrough. He watched the teacher walk to the table and really, order Lena to share her juice because the teacher had forgotten hers. My kid hugged it to her chest and said, "It's my Friday." Juice from my dad, soft and clear. And the woman, a grown adult with a job and benefits, tried to take it, a few drops. Hit her sleeve. Microscopic sunburst freckles, and she shrieked like it was acid. Assault beverage weapon. Yeah, that happened. The room went quiet, and then chaos, and the principal stepped between them, sent Lena to the counselor, told the teacher to breathe, and she called 911, voice trembling. I've been attacked by a student painting my 6-year-old as a threat phrase by phrase, building a case out of fear and fantasy, very aggressive for her age. People like this there, it was the Rosetta Stone in 4 words. We stepped back into the hallway to meet the officers, Miller and Cho, 2 uniforms that turned a bulletin board of finger-painted leaves into a courtroom. "Sir, are you the father?" Miller asked without looking at the principal, and Mrs. Caro clutched her sleeve like a movie extra in a rainstorm, terrorizing. "You hear him? Manipulation so clean you could eat off it." And I felt the trap, the script older than me. Angry, black dad, aggressive child, fragile teacher. And I said, "You're not questioning my kid without me and a social worker." Cho's eyes flicked to the principal. Some sense there, and they finally left. Lights fading quiet, like fallout. When I saw Lena in the counselor's chair, curled, small face swollen from crying, whispering, "Daddy, am I going to jail?" I held her until her breathing slowed. I told her, "No, baby, never. You were brave. You said no when something was yours." But the world we'd promised had cracked. The monster wasn't under the bed. It wore a cardigan and held a grade book. Monday felt like the first day of a war. We kept her home, called the superintendent, got a TED Talk in legalese about procedural review, and stakeholders heard about a union rep with sharper elbows than a hockey team. The district put her on paid leave, the kind of punishment where you keep the check and lose the desk. And by lunch, we got an email from a law firm accusing me of defamation for telling the principal the truth. Inside his own building, the machine had found its lawyer voice, and we were supposed to cower. But I don't cower, not when my kid's name is on the line. Word travels in small towns. You know what I mean? Support showed up with lasagna and whispered, "We've got your back." And poison showed up dressed as civility. 2 sides to every story. 30 years of teaching. She wouldn't snap race card. Like empathy were a coupon we'd forged. A parent started Cedar Families for accountability. Petitions, board emails, and the teacher's friends wrote op-eds about cancel culture, turning my 6-year-old into a culture war and me into a brand of anger you can buy by the gallon. We needed someone who speaks machine, so we found a lawyer named Avery Cole office over a used bookstore walls lined with marching photos and case law. She listened the whole thing, the microaggressions, the cafeteria, the call, the cops, the letter, the whisper campaign. And when we finished, she said, "They're trying to write a playbook. If they win this, they'll use it on every family after you." And we hired her before the word contingency finished leaving her mouth. Avery filed a countersuit for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress on a minor, filed complaints with the licensing board, sent the district a preservation notice so thorough you could hear hard drive scream. Then we bled through discovery emails about potlucks and bake sales, redacted lines like "funerals for the truth." The district hid behind privacy. The union hid behind process. Avery kept filing motions, and a judge who looked allergic to nonsense told them to hand over the file or taste sanctions. When the personnel file hit Avery's table, it was like someone opened a closet, and a decade of ghosts spilled out. Complaints labeled "resolved" that were anything but a Latino kid called Paco by the teacher because she couldn't remember a Muslim girl asked in front of class if she was hot. In that thing, a black boy made to empty his pockets for stolen crayons that didn't exist. A pattern wrapped in neutrality and locked away in a cabinet. Kids whose families moved, withdrew, gave up, vanished. And for the first time since that lunchroom, I felt something like clarity. This wasn't an accident. It was a career. Then came the hearing. Not a trial, but it might as well have been the high school auditorium. Packed our side parents, the other families. Avery found a few local reporters with notebooks and tired eyes on one. Half the teachers' side.
union reps or lawyer folks who glared at us like we'd keyed their minivans on the other 5 board members at a folding table between 2 flags, looking like they wished they were anywhere else. And the teacher sat with a tissue she didn't need, eyes wet on command. Her lawyer went first, painted her as a martyr to the current climate, turned the ghosts into misunderstandings, called my kids' trauma parentally induced polished fiction, until it blinded. Then Avery stood small and still and started laying bricks one by one, patterns, dates, names. The cafeteria scene from the principal himself. Mr. Benton walked to the mic and said he'd never seen a teacher abandon duty like that. His voice flat, no spin. And then Avery lifted a little recorder and said, "We should hear from Mrs. Caro in her own voice," and press play. You could feel the room lean in. The 911 dispatcher sounded steady, the teacher sounded breathless and big. "I've been assaulted, unprovoked," and then that phrase, "people like this," and it hit the room like a winter door slamming. A few supporters shifted in their seats, pretending it was the air conditioning. And when the recording clicked off, the board president looked at the teacher and asked if she had anything to add, and nothing came. Not a word, not a cough, just the sound a lie makes when it runs out of places to hide. The board voted unanimous termination for cause. The union blustered and then went quiet. The GoFundMe vanished, the lawsuit against us evaporated in a puff of without prejudice, and for a second it felt like the credits could roll, but that's not how victory works. Victory is messy and expensive and slow. The district rolled out bias training and a clear complaint process. Mr. Benton got called a hero, and those are good things. But my daughter still woke up some nights whispering, "Am I in trouble?" She flinched around blonde ponytails. She studied new teachers' eyes like weather therapy became a Tuesday and healing became a verb instead of a wish. Months later, on a regular Friday while I packed lunch and folded a napkin into a paper crane, I'm not nimble enough to fold. Lena put her hands on the counter and said, "I think I'm ready for mango today." And the kitchen flickered the way light flickers. When a storm loses interest, I drove across town and bought every sunburst mango on the shelf like a man buying back time. And when I slid that juice box into her lunch bag, it wasn't sugar anymore. It was a flag planted on ground we refused to abandon. So why am I telling you this? Why drag a family's hard year into your feed? Because the devil isn't in a juice box. The devil is in the form letter that calls harm alleged, in the cabinet that swallows complaints whole, in the polite voice that says, "Let's not make a big deal." There are ghosts in filing cabinets all over this country. Kids hearing their names handled like problems, and their stories labeled somber and principals who have to decide in real time whether telling the truth costs them their careers, and parents deciding whether to be a problem or let the machine grind on. Be the person who doesn't look away. Be the parent who brings a casserole and a spine, the lawyer who fights for a precedent. Not a payout, the teacher who calls out another teacher. Even if the lounge goes cold, be the board member who asks the only question that matters. What did we just hear, and refuses to forget the answer? Picture this final frame with me. Late afternoon winter sun soft and low through our kitchen window. Lena at the table doing spelling with a pencil. Chew marked to the feral. A juice box standing beside her like a tiny orange lighthouse. And she looks up and says, "Daddy, can I take 2 next Friday? I want to give one to Max." He never has a drink, and I swear I felt my rib cage make room for hope. Because she didn't let poison rewire her kindness. Because she's still who she was before the cafeteria. And the flashing lights and the paper cuts and the open question. Is this when a system fails? A child and a community drags it into the light. What do we owe each other next? How far do we go to make sure the next kid's Friday is only about a sweet sip at noon? Drop your take below. What does justice look like in a classroom? What's right? What's wrong? Where do you draw the line? Tell me the city you're watching from. Tell me the story in your school that needs sunlight. And if this hit you in the chest, like and subscribe so we can keep pushing these conversations forward. And hey, if you're into deeper dive drama pieces, Check the second channel too, but more than anything, share this with someone who needs to remember that a no from a child is not a crime. It's a boundary. And boundaries are how we all learn to live together. You know what I mean?